You are listening to The Michael Lodge Show. Wealth, business, and taxes. Oh yeah, and some politics. Let's get started.
Well, so here we are. Another day, another Monday. I'm glad to be here. Glad I made it through the weekend. Rainy, cloudy, thunderstorms, lightning. I love it because I know that we're getting some rain. And it makes my grass green and it makes it grow. We've had such dry weather over the last few days. Well, not few days, few months, where we have not had enough rain. And literally, where the dogs do their stuff and scrape the dirt and whatever else they do, my lawn has slowly begun to get smaller and smaller. There's a whole bunch of black dirt and then a little bit of green. So we needed the rain because I needed my weeds to grow back to make it look like grass. I wanted to, over the weekend, I had some conversations with some individuals on social media. Two people. And one individual kept calling me a misogynist. Now, I don't know where she got that or why she threw that at me, because what we were talking about was how we form our message, how we deliver our message, and how we have to have a good argument. She kept coming back to me, since she's a woman, because we were talking about somebody else's post, right? But this individual was responding for this person, and she said, well, since she's a woman, you do not want to have free speech. And she needs to have free speech. And my response was, it's not about free speech. She can have all the rights she wants about free speech. However, the way that you deliver that message and not having a sound argument to support your message creates hostility on the other side. Not just hostility, but it's conflict that leads into hostility. And I've noticed lately that individuals who are trying to support their political views, which everybody should be able to support, should be able to talk about their political views, what they believe in it, what their background is, what their meaning behind why they're supporting their particular political view. Everybody should have that responsibility. Everyone should have that right. That's a given. There's no arguing about that. But what I'm seeing is that those who are trying to present the political view do it with anger, because I think the anger then drives their political view, or it substantiates their political view. And that is where the problem begins, because once you start delivering a message of anger, anger comes back. What I spit off onto you comes back to me. What's that one about sticky? If it sticks onto you, it comes, something. You get what I'm talking about. You see, the problem is that on social media, in order to have any kind of a political view, they feel as though that their anger backs up the legitimacy of their political statement or view or presentation of what they think is facts. And that is where we get into this problem where, where we get into this problem where individuals create a situation for themselves. If you project hostility, you're going to get hostility back. If you show that you are angry about something, you're going to find some other angry person that's angry at what you're mad at. That's how this world works. And so people are really surprised that when, my goodness, I just said something bad about XYZ party, and what I got back was somebody who wanted to threaten me. So here's the same individual who, if you were to see her videos on this particular social media outlet, is nothing but anger towards the police, anger towards the system, anger towards a political party. And she legitimizes her argument by her anger. Unfortunately, that's not an argument. In fact, you probably don't even have a sound argument if you have got to deliver it with anger and hate. And that's what creates the anger and hate to come back to you. And people said that, oh, I'm so surprised. No one agrees with what I'm saying, and they came back angry. So I'm going to go to the police officer. And the police officer says, well, if you wouldn't say that stuff, it wouldn't come back to you. You've got to realize, either if you're a Democrat or a Republican, and if you spout nothing but hate, you're going to get it back. That's how this world is so evil at the moment, is because, well, it's always been evil, but it's evil in our communication pattern because we think that hate legitimizes our position, and it doesn't. You know, I believe in having passion. I love that, to have passion in what you believe in, and I encourage that. But once that passion spills over into anger and anger into hate, you no longer have passion. You just have evil. You just have hate that you're spouting out. Now, I had another individual, and she made a comment as to why Governor Santos of Florida decided to create a bill that would question, in universities, would question political parties and political thought process within in the schools, and also it gave students the right to sue a teacher if they begin teaching them like communist ideals and Marxism and stuff like that. Now, I don't think the law will go much further because it's too vague, and I think it's going to end up in court and it's going to be tossed out. I mean, I understand what the governor's doing. He's trying to say stop it, stop, trying to sway children into a certain way of believing that government is bad, the people are bad, everybody's bad. And that's what's been going on in our schools for quite a while. But this individual came back, and I tried to explain to her, as I read her bio on her social media page, you could tell that she had been a supporter and is a Democrat and campaigns considerably for the Democratic Party, which is good. I think that is great. The problem is that she has hate. So she came on very angry in her comments. So I responded back and I said, I think that you have what the governor is trying to do in that bill a little bit different, because if you look at the history of what's been happening over the last 4 years in various universities and in campuses and even in high school level, that there has been indoctrination, I was able to say the word that time, indoctrination of our students in a particular social economic view. And it's not good because it's teaching individuals to dislike our government and dislike our democracy. And that's what it's all about, is trying to keep and form this democracy going. Unfortunately, with them, they want to tear it down. And that is the problem. So anyway, I told her that there's been some instances where in universities and high schools where teachers have literally discriminated against anybody who was on a conservative level or who was religious level. And she said, show me proof. So I went to the internet and I Googled it and I found proof. And I showed her the proof. And it was one of my examples was of a high school teacher in North Carolina, where that teacher was separating the class based on religious belief and political belief. Now, it was since been taken care of by the school board, and it was very embarrassing to them that they had a teacher doing that. But remember this, is that teacher was taught in our universities. That teacher was taught in our universities to become a teacher. It wasn't where she did it online. Excuse me. It wasn't where she did it online. She literally went to one of our universities, sat in the classes, and that's what she was taught. And so she went out into the world and she got a job as a high school teacher, and that is what she began teaching. So I use that as an example. Well, she came back heated again. Finally, she deleted all the conversation because she was not winning in her argument, because I was able to show that there's been incidences, especially in Oakland. If you look at Oakland in the ability not to be able to speak what you believe in and be attacked with it, physically attacked, there was an issue. But that was another situation where she had a point of view, but she was angry about it, and she projected her anger through her words. Now, and we all do that. I'm afraid that we all do this same type of communication. When we're talking with friends, when we're talking with co-workers, when we're talking to the pastor, when we're talking, our political belief comes out, and if you do not believe as I believe, then all of a sudden you check the enemy box and I become your enemy. And that's so bad for our communication process, because now we have decided that I do not need to listen to your point of view because I'm right. I don't need to listen to your philosophy about the American flag because I'm right. I don't need to listen to you about economics of the United States because I'm right. So we have come to this point in our life, in this country, and I think it's probably all over the world, but I notice it mostly in this country, where you are able to condemn another person without listening to their point of view, and they're automatically, they are the enemy. They check that box that says enemy. Our process of listening has gone by the wayside because everybody wants to win. And on social media, you're able to say and do almost anything that you want to do because you feel that you're right, but you will not listen to anybody. So you begin to call them misogynist, you call them racist, you call them whatever else, Nazi, or whatever other word that you use. When you're not able to support your own argument and you begin calling other people names and you begin showing a high level of very toxic hate towards that individual, you have a problem. I have a problem. If I act that way, I have a problem. We have got to be able to start listening. And I saw a really great quote the other day, a really good quote. And they said, are you listening to me, or are you just waiting for me to stop talking so that you can spout your stuff? Basically is what it said. It was much nicer than that, but that's what it meant to say. And it's true, because we do not listen anymore. We don't sit down and listen to other people, because you've already got it in your heart, and when you have it in your heart and it's a hard heart, H-E-A-R-T, you have no communication process. You have no argument for the way that you believe. Because once you begin talking angrily and hatefully, your argument dies. And I tell that to you all the time. Once you begin talking in a way that is hated, that is hatred, and that is anger, your argument's dead. So if you really want to put your point across, I want you to begin listening, begin thinking about what your response is going to be. Take 5, 10, 20, 30 seconds to think what your response is going to be before you spit out nothing but hate. So our communication process in the United States is failing us. And the biggest reason is because texting, emailing, Googling, whatever other method that you're using, we're not thinking about the words that we are submitting to you to listen to or to read. We're not thinking about the words that will mean something to that other individual. Because you see, when you mix hate with your words, then I'm telling you, your message is dead on arrival. Excuse me. And that's where we are today. I see it a lot in listen, when I'm in mediation, a portion of my mediation process is discussing the communication process. How are you going to communicate with that other individual that you now have a heated relationship with? How are you going to communicate with that individual so that you can get your point across with as little words as possible? And that you're focusing on the content, you're focusing on the issue. Not on the history of the issue, but on the issue that needs to be resolved at this moment. And then the other side needs to be able to read that content, understand it, and respond back in as little words as possible. 25 words or less is what I tell them. So we as individuals, as we are in this social media game that we play every single day, if we are not focusing on the words, in the content, in the issue that you need to get to, then you will never have a resolution on the other side. You will never have an understanding from the other side of exactly what you mean, because you're going through the history, you're going through the hate, you're going through all of this nonsense instead of focusing on the issue that you need to talk about. And to hold people to that very same issue. Not to go off in tangents, not to go off and saying he said, she said, that's what happened, that's what I heard, and etc. as we go off into this nonsense world. But you are literally focusing on what is said, the content of what was said, and how you're going to respond in a way that resolves the issue. Listen, you can be at both ends of the communication process and not agree, but if you are focused on the intent of how you want to resolve it, you're going to resolve it. Now, there are some times, especially in mediation, that parties walk and go their own way, and there is no conclusion to the mediation. It happens. I've had it happen to me, where the people were so far away from each other, so far one-sided on both sides, they were one-sided, that they could not get to that middle part and listen to the issue, focus on the issue, and resolve the issue. And that's our communication process that we have now through social media, is that we spout it and then we run. We condemn someone and then we run. We call somebody a name and then we run. But you will never identify the core issue of what you feel that your subject matter is. Instead, you begin name calling. That is how America is communicating at the moment, and it's got to change. And teachers out there, if you are a teacher, if you are a pastor, I want you to spend some Sundays, I want you to spend some weekdays talking about communication and teaching your students how to communicate better. If you are talking about politics continually in your classes, stop it. Because politics does not create a learning situation. It destroys a learning situation. History is totally different than politics. What we learn through our history is what we should and should not do in the future. That's what we learn from history. If you're going to turn it into a political situation, then stop teaching, because you should not be in the school. You should not be in that classroom teaching those children. Communication is such an important part of our life every single day. Excuse me. And if we don't start focusing on how we communicate, we're going to have more and more situations where people threaten other people, where they become bullies to other people. So you teachers, you pastors that are sitting up there in front, you have a responsibility on teaching how to communicate respectfully, and to focus on the subject matter at hand. Teach your people to communicate better. Now, I'll keep talking about it on my podcast because I think it's such an important issue that we all have to work on it. And if you're having a problem communicating with your mate or with your co-parent, talk to me and I'll walk you through it. Listen, if you like my content, go to www.buymeacoffee.com/Michael Lodge. Help me out. If you have any business questions or comments, send it to info@lodge, LODGE-co.com. And I will answer them. I answer every single one that comes to me. But let's begin to learn how to communicate. Gosh, I almost sounded like Joe Biden there. I was beginning to whisper. Let's all begin to start communicating, okay? This is Michael Lodge. I'll talk with you soon. God bless. Bye-bye. This podcast is produced by Michael Lodge, fully focused on content.